Hey everyone, my name is Wes, and welcome back to another episode of Terror Talk where I discuss creepy clips online. I created this original horror music to add to the video, and I hope you enjoy it. Be sure to leave your own comments, and when you're done watching, check the description if you'd like to listen to my music without the commentary. Now let's get into it and have some fun.
This might sound odd to some of you, but I've always dreamed of being a bartender on a cruise ship. I don't know why, but life at sea just sounds so peaceful to me. Plus, I guess what you'd call a social butterfly, and the people you meet on cruise ships always have the most fascinating stories. A few years ago, I made that dream a reality. As a cheerful woman in my mid-20s with a couple of years of bartending experience tucked under my belt, I breezed through the interview process.
Have you ever had the desire to become a bartender? For me, I definitely do not have that desire. I don't even really like alcohol to begin with, so it would be a terrible fit. But I have a friend who has done bartending in the past, and it's not easy. Like, there are a lot of rude customers in the bartending business. But let me know in the comments below if you've ever been a bartender or have a desire to be, or are a bartender right now.
Royal Caribbean welcomed me as a bartender, and things were off to a great start. I won't bore you with the irrelevant details about my tenure, but you should know that this position came with lots of travel, sometimes too much. After just 2 tours, I interacted with 3
Well, duh. If you're gonna be a bartender on cruise ships, there's gonna be a lot of travel. Like, is that even a question?
times the amount of people that I had working at my local bar for 2 months. The influx of people was overwhelming, but that's one of the reasons I vied so adamantly for this job. This story takes place during my 3rd tour, a 12-night transatlantic cruise from Miami to Portugal and Spain. It was a long one. We'd be at sea for 5 days straight. There was a silver lining though. I'd finally be back in Europe, and Royal Caribbean might let me take a week or 2 to return home to Lyon. To preface, I know how to hold my own against drunk, overly flirtatious men buying drinks from me, handsome or ugly, old or young. I always worked nights, so that's just part of the trade. During this particular cruise, one customer stood out from the rest though. This tall, attractive 30-something-year-old kept catching my eye. Night after night, he'd find a seat at my bar, nursing his drinks slowly. Eventually, we struck up conversation about each other's lives, and he was always the last customer to leave the bar at the end of the night. For the first time in a while, I started looking forward to those late nights when Sebastian would hang around my bar. I could tell there was some depth behind those light green eyes. A sorrowful look seemed etched into his features. The 3rd night, I got him to open up about it, and the story was downright depressing. He reluctantly told me about his troubled marriage, pausing often as if weighing each word. His wife Sasha had been having an affair with his best friend from college, Charles. I won't get into the specifics, but it sounded brutal, and there were a lot of specifics. He literally told me their full names as if he had been waiting to vent to someone about this for years. He went on to tell me that he had boarded the cruise alone, hoping the vastness of the sea would help him forget his pain. I honestly didn't know how to react other than continue.
That's pretty deep, isn't it? To have a stranger like that just spill everything out to you. And I don't know if it's a red flag. What do you think? Is that a red flag? You know, to build trust and sympathy and then possibly take advantage of that person? That's just me though. I feel like this normally doesn't happen, which, if it happened to me, I would be a little bit suspicious. I'd be like, why is this person just opening up to me like this? Most people don't really do that.
Continuing to fill his glass. The night before we were scheduled to dock in Ponta Delgada, he expressed his gratitude for my company and listening ear. "You've made this trip bearable," he admitted. "Let me buy you a drink to show my thanks." This wasn't the first time I'd been offered a drink, but this time was different. I felt a genuine connection with this man, and it seemed unfair what he had gone through. I obliged, telling him I was happy to have helped him through such a difficult time. Normally, I'd pour my own drink, but he insisted on doing it himself, saying it was the polite and fair thing to do. I should have maintained professional boundaries, but his insistence combined with his apparent vulnerability persuaded me otherwise. Reluctantly, I agreed and invited him behind the bar, a decision that might have changed my life. He mixed the drink, his hands steady, and handed it to me with a small, sad smile. The drink tasted fine, but within minutes, a heavy drowsiness clouded my senses. I tried to grasp the edge of the bar for support, but everything went black as I succumbed to the unexpected wooziness.
Yeah, this is just dumb. Don't ever let a complete stranger make you a drink like that and invite him behind the bar, because this is the kind of crap that happens.
I didn't even have time to scream. When I awoke, the sight before me was terrifying. I was in my own room, but the place was in disarray. It looked like a tornado had ripped through it. Panic surged through me as I realized I was tied to my own bed with a towel shoved down my throat. A wave of relief washed over me as I concluded that my clothes were all still intact, untouched. An hour later, room service found me and freed me. It had been a full day. We were already pulling out of Jamaica. I was more angry than anything else. How could I have been so stupid? I had fallen for Sebastian's charming ploy, and he had taken advantage of my sympathetic nature. I doubted Sebastian was even his real name. My suite, as I already said, was utterly trashed. My jewelry, phone, and my personal belongings were all gone. The safe was wide open, its contents vanished. My suitcase had also disappeared. The cruise ship's security team made a massive deal over this. Not to the passengers, obviously, but amongst themselves. They reviewed the footage, only to discover that that guy had disembarked early in Ponta Delgada, not returning to the ship. The crew had no choice but to leave him behind when he didn't show up to the gangway at departure time. They urged me to keep my mouth shut about all of this, telling me not to go to the public. They offered me substantial compensation and promised me they'd find him eventually. After all, he must have used a passport to book the cruise. In the weeks after the cruise, they contacted me and filled me in on what their search turned up. Because the cruise hadn't actually returned to the States, it was a nightmare trying to contact American police and give them details on the crime and the perpetrator. Portugal was a little more compliant, conducting at least a semblance of a search. But even I knew there was no way Sebastian was still in Portugal. The United States eventually did get involved, launching a full-scale investigation. The identities that man had used were all real. Real passport, real name, real address, real everything. They went to his supposed place of residence first. The landlord told them that Sebastian had moved just over a month ago, leaving nothing behind. The landlord did have a personal phone number of his, but that was of course disconnected. The police looked for any property in his name, but there was nothing. His criminal history was also suspiciously clean. The guy had never even gotten a parking ticket. The police went to his previous jobs, all of which gave the same story. The only address they had was the one he left, and the only phone number they had was the one he had disconnected. I was furious. They literally had his full identity. There must have been something more they could have done. I couldn't help but blame myself for this whole ordeal. You might think things ended there. You'd be very wrong. I took an extended leave from Royal Caribbean, hoping to distance myself from the whole thing. Unfortunately, the situation only escalated. About a month later, I received the first one. A blank envelope was left in my apartment with a single photograph inside. It was me, walking to my car after doing some grocery shopping. I wanted to scream. A week later, I got the second one.
That would be horrifying, wouldn't it? To realize that this guy is now stalking you after having been completely robbed. Like, this guy is a sick asshole.
A candid shot of me shopping at the mall. At first, I tried ignoring the pictures, but they just kept coming. The envelopes came one after another, each one a picture of me, unaware of the camera. Each picture felt like a taunt, a reminder that he was still out there, watching me. I can't describe the terror I lived with during these weeks. I was afraid to leave my house. I couldn't go to work, hang out with friends, or shop without constantly looking over my shoulder. After the sixth envelope, I went to the police. I know you're probably wondering why I didn't go after the first envelope. Honestly, I can't even answer that question. The police were not very helpful. I don't think they even knew what to do. But I wanted them to have a record of my case in the event that something more serious came of it. And that's exactly what happened. One night, knocks echoed against my bedroom window. I knew it was him. The police investigated, found nothing, and left me more scared than I had been before they arrived. I had had enough. I moved apartments immediately after that, leaving no forwarding address, changing all my contact details, and increasing my security measures as best I could. Thankfully, I never heard from that man again. It's only been about 3 months though, so hopefully I don't jinx myself by putting this into words. My best guess is that he was able to unlock my phone while I was passed out, and that's how he was able to steal all my information. The worst thing about all of this isn't everything that was stolen, or even the fact that my whole life was uprooted when I changed apartments. The worst thing about this situation is that I'll never aspire to work on a cruise ship again. I don't even know if I want to keep working as a bartender. It's crazy how quickly a lifelong dream can turn into a nightmare.
Yeah, that is kind of crazy how a lifelong dream can turn into a nightmare like that, huh? But maybe it happened for a reason. And even though it was a terrible experience to go through, I feel like everything does happen for a reason. So maybe this just wasn't meant to be the line of work for her, and maybe she'll find another passion that she's even more passionate about now. Who knows? But this is definitely a cautionary tale that you should never trust strangers to pour you a drink behind a bar. And yeah, that was just a very stupid decision on her part, and she should have known better. No matter what kind of connection you have, especially if it's like that soon, right away, you definitely just don't want to take any chances. But I thought this was a really good story, and I hope you enjoyed my commentary and the music, and I will see you in the next video.